me about that part. It's just so funny that all of these beings don't eat food.
I know.
And they know that that's what we're related to. They're like, she's going to get it if we tell her a cake. Like, she's going to get
I
it.
know, totally.
Hello and welcome to Frequency Broads. I am Tara.
And I am Victoria, and we're so excited you're here. It's the last episode of season 2. Woo! We made it. And we're talking about our favorite topic, the cosmic connection.
And I feel like I need to first state, just for everyone's awareness, that my energy is really cuckoo today. It's all over the place. And I think it's going to be a lot of what we're talking about. There's a lot happening cosmically, there's a lot happening on the earth, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. But I'm sure you are all feeling, whether it be emotional, mental, or physical reactions to what is happening in the cosmos. So just be aware that you are not alone, and that is all we're going to talk about today. Whew, okay. Here we are. I'm back. Can I start a little bit, Victoria, with some Earth history to feed the logical mind and the energetic body and the light being inside us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I do this because we need to appease the logical mind so it's willing to open up its realm of imagination and intuition to anchor in everything else that we're saying. And even if you're not fully getting it, know that your light being is being pinged, is being activated. If you're listening to this episode, you were meant to be here. So, first and foremost, we all know, whether we're spiritual or not, this is a free will universe. That is something we've talked about over and over and over again. You get to choose your reality. You get to choose your job, your this, your that. And yes, there are outside influences that may make things more challenging or easier, but it's ultimately you that makes the decisions. Something we haven't talked about yet, and again, understanding it spiritually, but also human, is yes, it's a free will universe, but our universe is also interlocking, which means that everything reacts to one another. There are other universes where I can do something and it won't react to anybody. But as I taught my second graders last year, from the vast space of the universe down to your very atom, everything has a cause and reaction in this universe. And we know that for sure. And the last piece that I'll appease your mind before we get into the cosmic is, we know it's free will, we know it's interlocking, and we know because it's interlocking, there are people that affect us and we affect others. So when we're looking at all of this galactic information coming in, all of the light beings that we can talk about, it's a reminder that you have the choice to create. Your choice affects everybody else, and being mindful of how everyone else affects you. There's a frequency game happening on Earth constantly. It's happening everywhere, but obviously we're focused on Earth. And when we can attune into what frequencies are being projected onto us, right? In a human facet, we constantly see how, ads are telling us we're not good enough, like we've spoken about previously. That's basic knowledge. You know that you're being told to be scared and that you're not good enough. So you create this reality in your head that you're not good enough, and you act in accordance to that. And there's a reaction to that that will continue to perpetuate the narrative that you are not good enough. But you have the ability to choose a different narrative. And that's why when we start working and understanding and reading the cosmic energy coming in and working with the beings beyond this realm, we really get to choose the reality that we create. Although there's transition periods and sometimes it's hard and challenging, but it's ultimately your choice because we have free will, but remembering we are all interconnected. So that's my appeasing the human before we dive into how and why that's happening.
So beautifully stated. My human is very appeased by what you just said. And it feels so good to hear that information succinct and digestible. And because I know where we're about to go. And
Yeah.
yes, thank you for laying the groundwork there.
You're welcome. Because I for me, we've talked about in the last episode that Venus is in retrograde. We know we're in Leo season. We have the Lionsgate portal coming up, which we will get to. And all of those come with such heavy upgrades and downloads and reconfiguration. And it has been slightly chaotic for me, at least. So to really try to anchor into humanly understanding, I think is a really great way to enter into this conversation, because I have so much I don't even know where I'm gonna go today, to be honest.
Well, I think it's important that we understand our human bodies so that we make them a more conducive conduit for the ascension of the soul. So that can look like learning anatomy, physiology, looking at like how your muscles work and how your body responds to proper sleep, exercise, water, food, nutrition, going through all like the basic things we need to know in our human vessel. I would say that's like square one.
Mhm.
And then that's, when the energy is going to be happening simultaneously. So, how do you cater to your human body, this vessel, and become a conduit for light? Because if you're here today, you are likely part of the family of light. And as the family of light, we are here to support each other. And, the power of choice, I just want to talk about the power of choice for a moment because right now, in particular, it feels like our choices are being limited. Like, that's very
Mm.
much the propaganda that's being fed to us and the fear that's being perpetuated by our government, which is so silly that we pay these motherfuckers to then, like, produce this
Ugh.
fear factor in us, right? Okay. And one thing we're going to also talk about today, Tara and I are going to talk about our guides and what it's like to work with our guides and who and what their personalities are like, even though personality is kind of a human concept. But mine are gangster as fuck. And they're
Yeah,
just like,
facts.
they're like, okay, hold on. As much as like we get the government trying to act like they're part of the mafia, like it's just not working for y'all anymore. We're ready for this system to crumble. And that's part of why we're here today is to let you know that it's okay that things are falling apart because things are about to get so much better.
Absolutely. Something that really anchored in for me is, as a conduit, as someone who, or all of us that are constantly receiving energy and transmuting it and working with it and whatnot, the way that we're able to anchor in more light, right? Light is information. We know that already. We're at the end of season 2. Get with it. But light is information. That's how my guides talk. I'll tell you that. Light is information. And when we can't physically anchor in the light that we are being access to, it causes a lot of chaos and distress. That's why a lot of people lose their sense of reality, because ultimately we are making it up. So when you don't have the information of that, or if you're not having the understanding of that being anchored, then it's really chaotic and you just see the matrix breaking around you. And a great way to start opening your body to receive and understand the information that is being poured down. Two main ways. Oxygenating. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Good. Yay. Oxygenating the body. So, really working with things like pranayama, different techniques of breathing, because that is how you're moving energy. And when you have more space in the body, you're able to hold more, as well as healing your nervous system. And we've talked about the nervous system a lot. And I really think that's going to have to be a whole episode itself in season 3, is just how do we heal the nervous system. But if we're in fight or flight mode, if we're living in our traumas in the present moment, like from our past, from our future, from our present, wherever it is, if we're anchoring that in, our nervous system isn't ready to receive new information. It's scared to receive new information. It cannot link in. So, those are really two great ways for you to explore how you can prepare your body for what is happening now.
Mm. Two things I want to add to that. Your breath is your greatest companion. And before we logged on today, Tara and I were both like, holy moly, ascension symptoms are real right now. We are
Mm,
feeling it. And as important as it is to oxygenate your body, exhaling is equally as important. So remembering to, right? And I think I wanting to bring this up right now because I'm thinking of the lion's breath. If you practice pranayama or yoga, you
mm.
know that like that like and I was felt called to do that in the shower, but it very much felt like a very bougie domesticated house cat, like coughing up a hairball where I was like, but it is such a beautiful release of whatever is stagnant from the heart to the throat and just letting it all come out. Because how are you going to make room for more breath if you're not exhaling what's stagnant inside of you? That's one.
Absolutely.
Two, your nervous system is your light processing center. And when you start
Mm,
to look at it as something, in the 3D world that we very much are familiar with, like a computer or a phone or any type of technology where we are able to code and download and upgrade and do all of these beautiful things, we are very much doing that in our nervous system. So our nervous system is so much more than what is in textbooks, what science claims it to be. And I also think today would be a good time to talk about how do we want to put this? Redefining scientific truth. We'll see how this plays out. But that's something that's coming through to me very strongly. Scientific truth for you might look different than scientific truth for someone else. And that's okay. And that shows where you are at in your evolution and what information you're able to process and comprehend. So just putting that out there.
mm. And coming back to the nervous system, too, we know scientifically that the nervous system reacts and respond or causes reaction to all the other systems in our bodies. So if we're remembering, like Victoria said, that our nervous system is our, what did you call it? Light,
Processing center.
thank you. Light processing center, that as light is being processed, whether your nervous system is up to date or not, it's still then going to reflect or react to all the other parts or other systems in your body. And that is why we have things like ascension symptoms, because it's happening to our physical body being processed through our nervous system. So that's why you may feel really tired or not hungry or not being able to sleep or like jittery or like creaky, because your body is responding to what's being downloaded into the nervous system and then rippling out to the rest of the body. Similarly, like when we anchor in a frequency, whatever that may be, right? We are electromagnetic beings. We know that. That is fact. Whatever we are, not whatever we think, not whatever we feel, but whatever we fully embody, whatever we truly are, is completely broadcasted across not just Earth, but outside of that as well, into other realities, into other space. And we need to be mindful of what we are, because that frequency then bounces off each other. We've talked about this before, where we tune into one another, adjust our frequencies. So we have all this information pouring down into us, trying to adjust us. Then we are broadcasting it. It is our job to pull this information down into the 3D reality, to anchor it in, transmute whatever has to be transmuted, understand whatever has to be understood, embody that, so that way it could be shared with others, whether it's in this capacity of a podcast or just living that experience so others can see that there are other choices.
There are three things that stood out to me in this book we've been reading. Tara and I have been reading. It's called Bringers of the Dawn by Barbara Marshnak. We are not done talking about
I love
what's
her.
coming through. But in the book, it says, "You are going to change the frequency simply by commitment, determination, and willpower." So if you're going to
Mhm.
focus on anything, let it be commitment, commitment to your healing, commitment to embodiment, commitment to regulating your nervous system, to practicing breath work, to hydrating, whatever
To
it may be,
sovereignty.
to sovereignty. Determination, which is, I think, plays hand in hand with willpower, right? If
Mhm.
you are feeling completely defeated by these ascension symptoms and it's completely bringing you down, what is your willpower to keep going? And what if the keep going looks like resting, to surrendering,
Mhm.
to trusting? Willpower is a funny one, right? Because it seems like you're either like born with a high degree of willpower or you're not. And then learning willpower is something that can be a little challenging for folks.
Yeah. And it's challenging for me as someone who has a strong willpower to just be like, "What's your problem?" Because talking about that's how my guides talk to me, and I think it's because like you said, they don't necessarily have personalities, right? They have intentions and they have frequency. We interpret these intentions and frequencies as emotion and personality because that's what we can perceive as a human and it's what we experience as a human. And their
Mhm.
interaction with us causes emotion. So for me, my guides come in very matter of factly, where they're just like, it does have that essence of love and support always, but with a little bit of like a little backhand sometimes, where they're just like, girl, what do you want us to do? We keep telling you you're choosing something different. Don't be mad at us. Like, like, so they're very much like, and I think it's because they know I'm capable of hearing it in this way. They're like, girl, you're the one who's got to do it. You're the one who's got to anchor in what we're telling you and broadcast it out. You can't blame us for the universe. Like, we're just a part of it too, which is what I want to get to because I know that we had someone reach out to us with a question we didn't get to last episode. And that question was, what is our purpose and who made us? Am I correct in that, Victoria? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay. And it's funny because before that question came in, I was already getting downloads of what is our purpose and who made us. So I want to go there next, Victoria. Before I do, is there anything else that you wanted to say in respect to what we were just talking about?
Nope. Let's go.
Okay. So this is where your human brain goes, oh, what? And you just go, it's okay, girl. Sit in the back. We have some things to tell you. And Victoria, please jump in at any moment of this story to add, to give your spin, because this is the download that I received, right? It's a combination of my intuition, my meditations, Bringers of the Dawn. I've also been reading No More Secrets, No More Lies by Patricia Corey, which is the third in a series. So, a lot of these resources have helped me anchor in the truths that I'm already getting because it's just written in another way. So I'm going to try to make the Earth's history as quick as possible to digest. We have our free will universe of interlocked cause and effect. And that universe consciousness, right? That very highest piece that we are capable of understanding at this frequency. I'm not saying it's the highest of the highest of the highest, right? I don't know. Breaks down into multi-dimensional beings and sun centers that have intentions. Victoria mentioned the Light family. That's the Pleiadians. That's where Victoria, or part, they're one part of it. That's where Victoria and I come from. And their central sun is unity and wholeness. So their whole intention of existing is to bring unity and wholeness. But there are other sun star centers or sun centers where their intention is survival. Their intention is to keep pushing, to gain more. And that doesn't mean that it's good, bad, or indifferent. That is just their intention. And the purpose of just that first layer is for the conscious unity, universe, whatever God, whatever Sophia, whatever you want to call it, is breaking itself down smaller and smaller and smaller in order for it to understand each other while it interacts. So it's the same way we look at our shadow, our inner child, our higher selves, all these components that make up our living being right now, our energetic being right now. We go in and meet our inner child and give our inner child what it needs, and our shadow comes out for survival and tries to fight and says like, we need to do this, and we interact with those parts of ourselves to find peace and wholeness and to grow and learn. So all of these aspects of itself that's coming out, even if we deem it to be dark or bad, is having a purpose for us to find liberation through freedom. And we could not find that liberation through freedom if there was nothing to break out of. So I'm not saying it's fun or comfortable or I'm happy about it, right? But it's there and it has a purpose, and a piece of our job now that we're like the minute little freaking cells that are like eons down in the tree of this highest consciousness, we're going to be facing a lot of all of these interpersonal pieces of itself, but we are all one. And that's what the family of light is here to remind us, is that no matter how uncomfortable it makes us feel, no matter how we use the word dark, because dark means lack of information, those who are in the dark space, those beings that are in the dark space, who are in survival mode, don't understand that we live in an abundant reality. We live in an abundant universe. So they just don't know. They don't understand. So they're in panic fucking mode. And they're like, we need to fucking survive. And the only thing that's fueling me right now is fear and chaos, because that's what I'm living on. So that's what's fueling me. And until I learn how to shift out of fear and survival into love and abundance and acceptance, can I actually be fed by that? So far, so good?
So far, so good. And I feel called to talk about the fact that many of us have been on earth many a times and that we have served both the light and the dark. And we know innately in our cellular being what it feels like to feed the dark, what it feels like to feed the fear. And here's the thing, I don't think the dark is always the fear. I think the dark is the unknown. The
Yes,
dark is the unintegrated. the the dark can be many other things, so I don't think it's always fair to associate dark equals fear.
I
Dark
agree.
is a very potent place because it's also the void, right? So I just want to say that, as someone who has very much served the dark and the light in many lifetimes, including this one, I got people, I got entities, I got beings on both sides. That's why you don't fuck with people like us, because
Because we got them both, bitch.
we
But you're
do.
absolutely right. It is darkness, right? If light is information, darkness is just lack of information. And that doesn't mean that, like you said, it doesn't mean fear. It doesn't mean anger. It just means unaware. And sometimes we need to, we're cyclical beings. The universe is a cyclical being, and sometimes we need to be in a space of unknown so that way they could be a new spark of creation. So that is why there's this light information and dark unaware that's playing towards each other, because that's what sparks new creation. And it becomes really uncomfortable at times, but it's needed.
It's super uncomfortable. The void is such a deeply sacred space because it's nothingness, and nothingness is the birthplace to all creation.
Mm. Yes, literal womb. Facts. So now that I laid out that concept of like that, I want to talk about why Earth and humans were created. And this is my understanding of it. Again, we'll say it over and over and over. This is my truth. That doesn't mean it's fact. That doesn't mean it's everyone's truth. This is just what, at this stage of my understanding, what I've been able to anchor in. And that is that there has been so much. Backtrack real quick. Hold on. I just want to clarify this. Maybe I'll cut it out. I don't know if it's needed, but I feel like I just want to clarify this. String theory tells us we live in a universe that has many realities or many dimensions, those dimensions being different frequency waves, right? So within the universe, this one universe, there are many different dimensions which hold many different realities, right? So I don't know why I felt the need to say that because it doesn't seem relevant to what I'm about to say. But anyway, um, outside of this dimension, that's why I wanted to say it, outside of the 3D dimension, which is being in form, right? Which doesn't just happen on Earth, it happens in many areas. But being in form, there was a lot of void or a lot of lack of information. So there was the Light Council, meaning the Council of Information, right? That is their star center. They're here to create a space of information and continue to spread information like a freaking teacher that they are. And they said, okay, we need to work together. We each one of these kinds of beings, each one of these races has a certain medicine that together create such beautiful magic that they were like, let's team up, right? Like, let's get all the pals together and let's create a 3D race that can actually anchor in light from the 4, 5, 6, 7, and beyond realities when they've gotten to that stage of their evolution. So they looked for a planet that didn't have already like major sentient beings that would influence this new race that they were creating. And they thought Earth, they had animals. They were like, oh, beautiful. Look, we have the, not primal, what's the word I'm looking for? Primate. They had these primate these primate creatures that could evolve into something more sentient if we assisted in that. And then we can step away and kind of like let them do their thing. And we can see how much we can give them light. They can anchor it in. They can start transforming the frequency of the 3D reality. That's happening. And while that's happening, they're taking strands of their own DNA from the Pleiades, the Sirians, the Arcturians, the Andromedons. They're piecing them all together and they're like, get a little bit of everybody and let's make the best goddamn recipe there ever has been. Boom, humans are GMOs. No, I'm kidding. Well, I mean, that is true, right? We're
Yes.
genetically modified
Yes.
organisms, fact. So anyway, while that's happening and while the Light Council steps back to be like, this is a free will universe, we want to see if they can do this, right? Like we gave them all the best pieces of us. They're at a beautiful planet. They found a planet that um, all of their races could physically live on, right? It had the water or the earth or the plants that it needed for those species to survive. So together would be a great place. While that's happening, there are other beings. I don't want to name them right now. I'm being told not to name them. That's fine. There are other beings who lost their planet. And they were like, we need to find somewhere to be because we need our race to survive. Like, we're at extinction right now for whatever fucking reason, bad choices, good choices, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're at extinction right now. So they stumble upon Earth and they're like, fuck yeah, this place is sweet. Look at these beings already doing it. Again, their space of lack of information, they were fueled in this specific understanding by fear and chaos. And they were like, oh my God, okay, this place is a little chaotic because they're new and it could feed us. And if we continue this loop, then this could be our new home planet. Like, this is where we can continue to strive and branch out from here and continue to move on and whatever. And then the Light Council caught on and they were like, the fuck? What? But at that point, they had already put this energetic grid around the earth that didn't allow for as much light to filter through. It was just more difficult because they wanted to have a frequency control over us. And that's what we see to this day with propaganda and like media and all that, trying to keep us scared and trying to keep us separate because they know as light beings, as physical beings that can hold light, if we start to unify and respond to the Light Council's original purpose, then they can no longer feed from us because emotion is fuel, as Victoria so gracefully put it last week or whenever. And then when we can unite and start to shift the frequency of Earth as a whole, they actually have a choice to integrate themselves and say, all right, you know what? Well, it looks like there's no more of this kind of food. So maybe I'll try this food and start to integrate that, or they'll leave, right? When we get to a certain point, they're either going to starve themselves out, leave, or change. So we are here, right? That's who made us. There's your question. That's who made us. Our purpose is to anchor in light, share information, and merge dimensions. And the way we merge dimensions, right? When we hear people say initiation, which was my card for today, when we hear people say initiation, what that really means is you're accessing another reality, another dimension, another space, conquering that. That doesn't mean you're taking over, right? But you're learning what you need to, you're integrating what you did, you found the information there, and then you anchor it back into this one. And you continue to do that. And as you do that with more different realities, the more light can be held in this reality. So that is our purpose. And that's why there are beings on this planet physically in some capacity that want to keep us away from that, because then they don't know what they'll have left, right? They don't have the knowledge of what else is out there. They're in the dark. So they're like, this is my food source. I need to keep my food source for survival. When ultimately they just need to do their own merging and integration and transmutation, which is like lineages and, genetics beyond Earth that need to be transmuted, but it is a part of us. And this is the last thing I'll say of it, because I'm getting hot, and they're telling me like, girl, I feel it like tunneling into my head, and they're like, you need a breath. But the last
Mhm.
thing I'll say is, hold on, let me take a breath actually. Just as much as the Light Council came in and gave us these 12 strands of DNA, there have been the beings on here that have also played with our DNA. So you are, like Victoria said, a part of both sides. And it has been my job over the past couple months to look at the DNA that is that part of me and integrate it into love, because it doesn't just help me, because there's that part of me that's angry and fearful and in survival, but it ripples back. So that race in this galactic space can say, oh, actually, that feels pretty good. Did you feel that little crumb? That felt pretty good. And as more people start to stop telling themselves, this is bad, these beings are bad, I have to eject them from my being and my world, all you're doing is feeding their fear. You're not helping yourself or them ascend. So if you say to yourself, no, this is a part of me, whatever that part may be, because we're all genetically different, we all come from different star centers and backgrounds and histories, whatever that is for you, merging that reality. I took that void reality, I took that darkness, and I brought it into the light. And it was fucking painful physically and energetically. But now I've tapped into something so much more aware than I once was. So I'm going to take a breath, because that is my history and understanding of who we are as light beings, or just beings in general, because some of us may not be light or dark beings. There could be like a million other fucking kind of star centers. It's just our duality mindset understanding, and what we need to do to make that multidimensional merge.
Holy smokes, Tara. That was such a beautiful description and a lot to process and integrate, perhaps something to come back to listen to. And also, not try to let your logical mind comprehend everything Tara just said because it's a lot.
Yeah.
Let your higher self take this one in. Come back to it if you feel like you need to listen again. So, the history of Earth is a very complex and beautiful one that, has been kept hidden from us for a long time. And if you go seeking this information, you will find very common threads of information. So, I encourage you to do so. I know Tara encourages you to do so, and practice the game of resonance and see what feels like truth for you. I feel called to talk about how Earth cares about all of its inhabitants.
Hmm.
I've mentioned before that I work in sustainability. I very much care about global warming, climate change, resiliency, how us as humans are impacting the earth, how we're going to heal the earth. And from a scientific perspective, there's so many ways I can take this. And let me just, I think, be really clear in saying that this is an energy game. And this is all about having access to free energy. And
Mm.
unfortunately, we're at this point in our evolution, or in the evolution that those who have been in power or were once in power, because they aren't anymore. That's why we're seeing things play out the way they are. They're pulling out all their last resorts to try to remain in power, but we're all waking up so quickly. And so, as Tara mentioned, we've been in a state of survival for a very long time. Um, and when you're in a state of survival, you're in a state of disempowerment. And when you're in a state of
Mm.
disempowerment, you are not empowered, right? Like, it's very simple.
It's that simple, guys.
um, the energy and the control of energy has played out through capitalistic strategies to make us
Mhm.
pay for electricity, gas, the oil industry, right? We all know how the oil industry is not just like oil in your car or transportation. Oils and plastics affect basically everything that's consuming us. And don't even get me started on microplastics right now.
Mm.
But this is an energy game, and learning how to play the energy game is what's going to help you to heal the earth. And in order to play the energy game and heal the earth, you must understand your own energy and your impact on earth and the energetic exchange that humans and earth have. Because this is something that I'm like, oh man, if we would have been taught this in like preschool, how different we would be treating the earth right now. So, the way that it works is us as humans, this is why we feel supercharged when we go out in nature. Us just putting our feet on the ground or touching a tree, we have this exchange where we are able to allow the earth to take whatever it is in our energetic field and transmute it. But the exchange has not been a fair one, right? Because what are we doing
Mm.
with the earth? We're just extracting resources and taking and taking and taking. And, working in the world of sustainability for a long time, I think folks often find one or two things that they're very deeply passionate about and kind of stick to it. But if you're looking at it from a holistic point of view, it really comes down to having an understanding of where you're putting your energy and how you're consuming energy. And that is from every aspect, from every breath you take to how you're uh, commuting around the world, and having a deep knowing and understanding and practice of reciprocity. And this is kind of what Tara is talking about when it comes to the interlocking web of
Mhm.
free will. The repercussions of us taking and taking and taking is evident in the rising sea levels, of us not being able to have fresh air to breathe because of wildfires. So there's so much chaos at this point. What do we do now? Right. And this seems like
Mm.
counterintuitive and like we're not doing enough. And it doesn't seem like we're going to make an impact. Do whatever you feel is best, free will, promote it all day long. But I'm telling you, it is an inside job. It starts with
Mhm.
your own energy. One unique thing about the human experience is that we are one of the few to experience emotions of all of the extraterrestrial beings. They don't even like to be called extraterrestrial. The light beings,
Yeah, they
the
really
right aliens, no, no, no.
otherworldly
Yeah,
beings,
otherworldly beings, exactly.
because 'cause they're not all light, who knows?
True. but they don't experience emotions. And that's kind of why the disconnect happens, even between us and our guides, because they're like, why are you getting so held up on this one thing? Like, and because
Mhm.
we're so stuck in our emotions. I also feel called to talk about how love is not an emotion. Love is a level of consciousness. Love can be felt as an emotion, but I think there are other words to describe that type of love. But if we're
Mhm.
looking at it as love as a state of consciousness, that is like 5D and beyond. Not to say you can't experience love in the 3D, but 3D love is where you get the kind of twin flame tumultuous, jealousy, icky, um, kind of come and go type of love. And that's not the love we're talking about. And I think that's why a lot of folks get triggered by the use of the word love. Um, because the hallmarks of the world have created this kind of false narrative of what love is. Can we reclaim Valentine's Day as like a evolved um, holiday of celebrating the love that we know as the consciousness of light beings? Just saying, I love Valentine's Day.
Ooh.
I know it's August right now, but let's talk about let's talk about my second favorite holiday. Um, anyways, so Earth, good old Earth. I think that I also want to kind of start to detour down the path of talking about honoring other people's dramas and lessons.
Mm. I was just gonna say, something came through that I wanna share, and I wanna see if it resonates with you when you were talking about how love is a consciousness. Fact. Sorry, that's a fact. Love is a consciousness, and that twin flame, soulmate, that kind of stuff isn't the kind of love we're talking about. But I'm also feeling that it is. Because if we understand that love is a consciousness and light as a consciousness is information, love as a consciousness is creation. So, in those moments of twin flame, soulmate, the love consciousness here, it's an opportunity to create something new and to transmute things. So, I love that you bring up twin flame because a lot of people with twin flames, understandably why, because what is a twin flame? It's uncomfortable and it causes you to face really terrible shit. And it causes you to have that space of creating something new because you're being presented with all the shit that didn't work anymore. So that is a clear understanding or a clear representation of love as a consciousness because it doesn't feel like love all the time in the way that we
Mhm.
try to understand
Mhm.
it. But that is a love consciousness because it's forcing you to create something, or it's giving you the opportunity to create something if you anchor into that frequency.
Yes, that definitely resonates. Thank you for clarifying that. It's a tricky topic, right? Because I think we've been programmed to see love and twin flame relationships even in such a linear, like defined by someone else way. And so I think I'm bringing this up to allow you to start to define what it means for you from your past experiences and then what you're about to create now for yourself in this new world. And the month
Mm.
of August is very much the start of the new world. Like we've been edging, we've been getting there. Yeah. It's like portal activation, multiple
Mhm.
timelines, and we're kind of at this veering its head into this point of
Merging.
we're merging.
We're merging all those realities, all those levels of consciousness into one little spear arrow. And if we all get aligned together, that unity potentiality, we're going to become truly multidimensional beings, just like the 5, 6, 7 dimensional beings.
I'm getting this visual of, are you going to merge like you're a New Jersey driver where you're just like, shoo, like going to the next lane over? Are you merging like you're an Oregonian where you're like, stop,
Oh my.
start, are you going to go? Let me go. And no, you go. And like, right? Like they're,
I'm
smooth
sorry,
ways to
just
go
a
about
real
it.
quick,
Do it.
the
Go there.
I am not a fan, no offense, it's gonna come off mean, but it's rooted in my life that I don't really like Jersey, it's just a New York thing, but the Jersey Shuffle is real, I do it all the time, you just, like, zeet over 4 lanes because you're safe, you know it's good, but fucking Oregon people stopping in the middle of the lane for I I'm getting in a frequency that I don't wanna be in because
It's
that makes me so mad.
it's chop
It's more
suey.
dangerous.
It's
It's more dangerous. What are
it's
you doing?
yeah, it's icky for
Chop
sure.
suey. Yes. Yes.
Of course, I'm gonna bring up System of a Down right now. So I was, yeah, starting to talk about honoring other people's dramas and lessons,
Mhm.
just as a note of, I think when it comes to being in a state of victimhood and how that relates to the disempowerment we were just talking about. Because if you let stories play over and over and over again, you just keep fueling it. And that's how you let your past perpetuate and affect your future. And I think when you
Mm.
start to step back and look at things from a higher cosmic perspective and see it from a new perspective where you're able to rewrite the narrative. You still are honoring your experiences, but it probably at this point is no longer serving you, and having the trust and acceptance to let go of it. And maybe the letting go of it is rewriting the narrative. But I see so many people at this point kind of being held back or being stuck or stagnant because they are stuck in the past. And I really I feel for anyone who is having a hard time breaking out of outdated cycles.
Mhm.
And I really want to hold space for you right now as things are unraveling, whether you're ready or not. And knowing and trusting that you are being held and cared for, and you have guides. Each and every one of you has a guide group. And that's why it's so important right now to start to connect with them, because they are here cheering you on, offering guidance, right? And I actually want to go back to what we were talking about earlier about your nervous system being this like light processing system, because I thought of like customer service hotlines, right? That's kind of how your guides work. Like, call them up and be like, hey, this shit ain't computing for me right now. I need a sign, a synchronicity. I need some guidance in whatever form. And communicate with them and say, I prefer to receive this information in my dreams. And sometimes you may not
Mm.
even remember your dreams, and that's okay because you're still receiving the information. So just know that they are here and waiting to help you. That is their purpose.
And although they have no emotion, like Victoria said, they're just an energetic frequency. We interpret that as emotion. It'll still feel like they're a little pissed at you when you keep asking for a sign and they keep giving it to you, because what humans tend to do is, I want a sign, and they're like, "Okay, here it is." And you're like, "Well, I don't know. Can I get another one?" And they're like, "Okay, all right, here it is." And you're like, I don't know if that was it. I don't believe." And they're like, "Bro, what the fuck else we're doing what you told us to."
Yeah.
So it's not only, like Victoria said, calling in, but then trusting. However you want to practice tuning into your intuition, trusting that what you just saw was true for you. Even if it was just the bird that you always see, but for some reason today it caught your eye in a different way, and that bird symbolizes whatever to you or whatever. Trusting is such a key into experiencing and connecting with your guide group, with the many beings that are willing to come and help you, that aren't your selected guide group but are just coming in as mentors, right? We have so many beings that we can access if you just ask for them.
And the reason why these other beings who aren't part of your guide group are willing to help you is because our ascension is affecting their ascension. And that's
Mhm.
why Earth is the happening place in the galaxy. That's why a lot of souls want to be here right now, because this is where you come and you do the work. You upgrade and evolve at such a rapid rate, and you get to experience emotions. Experiencing it, emotion is a privilege in human
Mhm.
form. And also, maybe it'll give you some peace of mind to know that when you leave this human vessel, you will not have to experience emotions. So, in the moments where the emotions feel very intense, yes, you can tell yourself it's temporary, but it's also temporary while you're in human form.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
And something that I've really come to understand is that emotion is your ticket to the spiritual realm. It is your connection because as physical formed beings, it is harder. We don't have the capacity to just like tap in the way a six-dimensional being would, right? There's so much that we have yet to experience as humans, but hopefully where our ascension is getting there. So emotions are our ticket to our spirituality. But like Victoria said, it's about being able to see what's rising. What is the drama and lesson coming up so that way I can learn from it? Because Earth is a happening place because, as we've said many before, it's a library. It's a galactic library of information because all of these beings from the Light Council and from many other councils who have stored things not only in the grids of Earth, but in our DNA. So you have all this knowledge inside you, but because we're not used to working in that processing system, we need to use emotion to get there. We need to use emotion to transmute and transform and do this kind of work. So the first step to connecting with your guides or connecting with anyone is connecting to your emotion and knowing that all, like Victoria said, are powerful and anger, fear, they're needed, right? We need to use those to access these different parts of ourselves, these different realms, these different dimensions, merge them in. And I said last episode that only humans can create, that your guides can give you guidance, but it's you that puts thing into form. And I want to reiterate something there. It's only those beings that are in form that can create form. So, yes, that means humans, but that also means other dimensional beings that are capable of coming into form, which the government is already telling you they have contact with. Hello, it's been happening forever. But it's also when other dimensional beings merge with your being because they want to access emotion to link them to information that they may not have yet, right? And that could be a light council that's like, oh, I wasn't able to tap in, like a Pleiadian dropping into me and Victoria, that happen all the time, that not only allow us to broadcast their information and light that they're asking us to broadcast, but for them to tap into the other pieces of me, the Arcturian piece, the Orion piece, that they're like, oh, yeah, I forgot about those pieces. Let's access that information as well. So as much as we want to call in our light council, the first thing we want to state is I'm only asking to bring in those that are for my highest potential or for the highest potential of all. Because there are beings that are waiting to come in and experience form that may not have the interests of the human race because they have an interest in their race. And that doesn't mean that it's bad, but it's different. And we want to just experience anyone and everyone who has our highest good. So making sure you state that if it's not something that you're used to doing and you're just starting to connect, first stating, I am looking to connect with anyone who has my highest potential, and all the rest I gracefully decline with love and gratitude for wanting to experience this because it is beautiful. But right now, I'm only on here for like a blip of a second compared to what's happening outside, and I have work to do and I can't be messing around with things that that aren't for me right now. And maybe one time when I feel exploratory, I'll invite someone who still has it for their highest good and whatever you want to explore because you have free will. But making sure that you make that statement known.
Thank you for clarifying that, Tara, because I think it's really challenging to get started. It's like operating a Ouija board, which I have never done and never will do because that's just in such a different state of consciousness. But that's sort of what it's like, right? Where you're sort of like, all right, let me just like maneuver the parts I'm familiar with and see what comes through. And it's so
Mhm.
important to have an understanding of protecting your energy. And I think as we start to become these very vibrant, evolved light beings, understanding and practicing forming a bubble shield around you where others' darkness or trauma or whatever is kind of holding them in whatever vibration they're in is just going to be mirrored back to them. So, in any moment where you feel like you are unsafe, or yeah, hold on. In any moment where you feel like you are unsafe, whether it be energetically, physically, um, put put that bubble up, put that shield up, and start to play with it before you're at the point of feeling like you need protection out in the real world. Like really, like go out into the world and experience what it's like to not have it, to have your light be shining. And I think you'll find that it's going to attract a lot of people to you. People are going to want to consume your energy. They're going to want a little piece of you, like moth to a flame, right? And then when
Mhm.
you start to put this shield up, you're able to play and manipulate your energy in a way where you're able to harness and be in this 5D energy, but also anchored in the 3D world. Because let me tell you what, when you're up in the 5D, 6D, and beyond, and you're trying to drive a car, it can be very challenging. You are going to feel like a total space cadet
Mhm.
and flighty, and like it's not an enjoyable experience. And that's why I want to honor the 3D experience because that is what allows us to experience human form. So 3D is not
Mhm.
a bad thing. It is a very necessary and needed in particular situations. So, when I was a little girl, I was visited by two cloaked figures, and they would stand in the corner of my bedroom. And I didn't fear them, as we talk about in season one, episode one. Tara and I have been very connected to the spiritual realm our whole lives. But as we were preparing for this episode, I started to get flashbacks to these cloaked figures. And I started to see myself going out into the world and being this light being with a cloak over my body, in an effort to hide who I really am. And I want to speak to this because I think it's important that we acknowledge the entities that are still perpetuating fear and how psychic attacks, there's still very much a thing that requires us to play it safe, right? Like we're like wearing a spiritual condom. Like we are protecting our no glove, no love, right? My gyno always used to say, I now have a new gyno, so she doesn't have any cool sayings like that I know of yet. I just went to the gyno thanks to the Barbie movie reminding me to schedule my yearly
Great movie.
exam, which I know they say every 3 years, but that feels like bullshit. Anyways, we can edit that out if it makes sense. I just felt like,
No, it's fine. I was gonna
um
say I think it's every 3 years for a pap smear, but you should go in every year.
mm,
Wait, that doesn't make sense. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah,
continue.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, Tara, I know we've talked about having a shield or protecting ourselves. Is there anything at this point, because I've watched you emerge as this multi-dimensional being and really beaming this light frequency, like my girl's glowing right now, whether it be summer break or whatever is going on,
A little
but
bit of both.
yeah, you're glowing like I've never seen you glow before. What kind of tools or how do you visualize protecting yourself out in the world?
So, first, I want to mention that I have also been visited by the cloak figures. And I think once you said that, it really linked in for me that at first I was nervous because when we see cloak figures in media, it's like the cults and the bad and the this and the that. But it really just clicked into me. It's because if they took down the cloak, I would be like, what the fuck is that? Like, you don't look like humans. So now I'm very confused. So, it's yes, partly for protection, but it's also partly for our own understanding of reality because if they gave us everything from the get-go, we would not be able to perceive and not be healthy. Um, for me, it's simultaneously what you were saying, that bubble. I am
Mhm.
constantly creating that bubble of light, constantly creating that bubble of information. And when I was able to recognize, because as you heard in my mom's interview, she always told me to protect myself with white light. Light is information. So now that I have that understanding and I'm saying, okay, nothing can come past this information, what I needed to do was understand that I need to trust my own frequency and my guides when I say the only things that happen to me in this lifetime are for my greatest good. So when I feel unsafe and I remind myself, whatever happens to me is for my greatest good, I surround myself with a bubble of white light, which means anything that passes through is going to come through the vibration of frequency of light, of information. Then when things that make me feel unsafe happen, the first thing I do is one, know that I'm safe. I just remind myself I'm safe. Even if physically I may not be safe, I'm like, I'm safe. And two, that it's flooding through my barrier of information. So even if it's something unpleasant, scary, or hurtful, that it is for my highest good. And as it enters my bubble of white light of information, that may it come through and let me get the information before I have to experience way too much turmoil.
Mhm.
And when I continue to remind myself that, even when I am at my wit's end, I need to come back and say, but what am I supposed to learn here? And I know we all have that, oh, these are my lessons. But when I really think about it that way, and the smallest, minute things of this uncomfortable or unsafe situation is happening, why? For me. Why for me? And how am I supposed to integrate that, transmute it, and respond to that? Because we always have a choice to respond. And I know that that's hard to conceptualize when we talk about things like trauma. Why would I experience something like this for me? And I can't answer that for you because I'm not you and I don't know what you've experienced in your many lifetimes and what you're experiencing now. But I can tell you there is a reason for it. And you may not see the reason in this lifetime.
Mhm.
But when you can anchor into knowledge and love, then it's for a purpose. When you live in the fear mind state, in the victim mind state, then that purpose may not be actualized because you're not integrating it and transmuting it. And speaking of emotions being the ticket for the spiritual realm, taking that concept and the concept that time is not linear, I feel it's very easy to understand that it's it's mainstream to know your inner child. It's mainstream to say I need to reparent myself because of my trauma. When you understand that trauma reaction happens and you have this emotional and physical response, it is you getting the opportunity to go back and tell your inner child the thing it needed to hear. Hold your inner child the way it needed to be held. But what are you actually doing? You are using emotion to ride time into that space of existence and heal that child so that way it's affecting the now present moment for you to live in peace and not hold that. So you are using emotion to ride dimensions and ride realities, entering your past just as much as we see many creators in the spiritual realm, ourselves included, riding the emotion of sovereignty or riding the emotion of love and creation and all of that to the future to say, what will people need? Our people who are already in our community 10 years down the line, what do they need to hear today? So that's how we ride. And it's an easier way of understanding how A, time is not linear, and how B, even though they're not experiencing emotion, we're using that as a tool in this third dimensional reality to move through realities and dimension. And the last thing I want to say is you mentioned how 3D is so important. And I just want to reiterate that. It is so fucking important. I know how terrifying it is. I know, myself included, am constantly looking to go elsewhere, looking to connect elsewhere. But we were literally created to be 3D vessels that can hold light and love frequency. That is why this reality was created, or this earth was created, because the 3D needs us, needs the human race to be able to anchor that in. So when you get caught up in how you want to leave this reality, how difficult it is, remember the importance of it. We cannot ride to other dimensions without emotion. We cannot have these understandings unless we're in, or lessons learned or growth, unless we're in the third dimensional reality, facing other versions and mirrors of ourselves to learn more. So when we go to the next level of consciousness, we're facing other beings at that level of consciousness to learn more about ourselves, and so on and so on. So we have the most important job here. It's as basic as your cells having the most important job in your body. Because if your cells are diseased or hurt or tainted, your entire system falls down. That is how crucial and important we are. And just like the light beings pieced their medicine together to create us, it is so crucial for us to be expressing our genetic code, our resonant frequency, no matter how others respond to it, because you have a part in this plan. And it may be the relationship villain that makes someone else find liberation through breaking and freedom. And as light comes down, I know I'm like, I'm done. And they're like, one more, one more. And as light comes down, think of it as fire. It is going to burn everything we've ever known because it's new information. So we cannot be fearful of things in our own personal life, in our society and community, and as a globe, breaking down completely, because that is the only way to rebuild in this new consciousness of information, light, and trying to hold the frequency of love. Amen. Goodbye. I'm done. So it is. Mwah.
Everything you say, Tara, makes me want to fist pump. So if you're not fist pumping or snapping right now, like, mm, mm.
That's so funny because when I was talking about something with Andrew, he's like, why aren't they always just partying to party rock? And I was like, what? So they could just be fist bumping? And he's like, yeah. I was like, all right.
What's it going to take to allow yourself to give yourself permission to be open to new perspectives?
Mm.
That is something to ask yourself. There's so many modalities, techniques, strategies, ways to maneuver this one, right? But what is it going to take to accept and honor a new perspective? One other thing that came up, actually, two things. I'll touch on this one first. This year has been a year where I have struggled to feel safe. There are a lot of changes at play, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And if you're living in a major city, there are people of the lowest vibration just doing drugs on the street. And to see a soulless human is one of the most terrifying things. I can like encounter ghosts all day long and be like, okay, cool, what's up? Hey, energy in the corner, whatever. But to see a soulless human is just has been terrifying for me. And so it has triggered this quest for me to find safety. And what I've come to find out, and I think this plays into what I talked about during last episode when it comes to my romantic journey and abandonment versus
Mm.
rejection, which Tara and I will be talking about. We're dedicating a whole episode to abandonment and rejection in season 3 because it is whew, such a pivotal point for us to make the choice to take a path for our highest good. It's an
Mm.
opportunity, if you will. Finding safety within myself has been probably one of my toughest lessons. And Tara, you said something, you just said, just tell yourself, I am safe. To tell yourself you're safe when you're in hypervigilance and your nervous system is completely firing and synapsing and not able to process those words, I am safe. Telling yourself, I feel safe, I am safe, is the practice of allowing your thoughts to control your reality, having your thoughts control
Mm.
your experience. And that's the type of control we're talking about. Like, if we're going to be controlling anything, you start with the breath and then you move to the thoughts.
Mm.
And one other struggle, a lifelong struggle, is being in the vibration of trust. I've had my trust tested time and time again as part of my life lesson to be like, okay, you ready? You're ready to anchor into trust? And in the book, Bringers of the Dawn, uh, they offered a new phrase of looking at trust. And so I want to offer it to you in hopes that it might give you a new perspective. So they call trust divine nonchalance. And the way that they describe this is if you go into the restaurant and you place an order, you do just that, and it's very similar to manifesting. So think about this simultaneously as you place your order in a restaurant and you're going to get the food. You trust you're going to get what you ordered. And if you don't get what you order, you make the corrections and then you're ultimately given what you order. But having the trust or the not divine nonchalance to sit back and say, I placed the order, I'm going to wait a certain amount of time and it's going to be given to me when the time is right. You're not going into the kitchen and making sure the onions are prepared correctly and they're using the right type of oil and this and that. You're not directing the chef, right? You're letting all of the players in the symphony do what they know how to do best. So, whether the players in the symphony are otherworldly beings, people in your life, energy is at play, divine nonchalance is the way to sit back and say, hey, I declared what it is I want and desire through my thoughts and words and actions. Let me allow that to cook and simmer, bake for as long as it's needed to until my energy matches what it is I'm asking for. And then with gratitude and deep
Mm.
reverence, accept what it is that you are given. And if you are like, oh no, this is not in alignment with who I am anymore, that's okay too. Start your
Mhm.
next order in divine nonchalance.
And reciprocity plays there too, right? So, like, yes, gratitude, but you pay for that meal. And I'm not saying,
Yes.
like, you're gonna, like, charge a Venmo to the Pleiadians, but you need to do something that speaks to your energetic code. For me, it looks like ceremony. For
Mhm.
someone else, it might just be taking a deep breath and saying thank you. Like, whatever it is, it's making sure that there is reciprocity there for sure. We have, right, we talked about how there's this grid on Earth that was not allowing all the information to flood into Earth freely because of frequency control. Um, so when at this stage in the game, when we have the grid is a little more cracked open from all the people over lifetimes who've been trying to carve the path little by little, um, information is coming down. If we don't have people or yourself to anchor that in, all of that becomes chaos. And that makes me think of the things like when Venus has been in retrograde or when the Lion's Gate is coming up. And we're like, why am I feeling this way? And why are all these things happening to me? And if we don't know what the connection is cosmically or what the connection is for our own energy and our own path, then we just get really caught off guard. It becomes chaos. Then we step more into fear. So that's why it really is important to be mindful of what's happening cosmically with the planets. Be mindful of checking in with your guides, checking in with all the frequencies that live inside you, your inner child, your shadow, because they're affecting one another, right? We're interlocked in this free will universe. And if you're not knowledgeable of that, if you're not letting the light anchor in, you're going to feel off the rails. And I think it's really important to remember that as we're in Venus retrograde, which is all about romantic relationships with yourself and with others that are coming to the forefront for you to say, what patterns have I been dealing with? And do I want to choose something different? Because I do have a choice. Doesn't mean that it's easy, doesn't mean that it happens overnight, but you get to choose if you stay in those patterns. But we're also in the realm now, the end of July into August, I believe until August 12th, is the area for Lionsgate, which I'd love to talk about if you're ready, Victoria.
I'm ready.
Okay. So the Lionsgate is just Sirius, Orion, and Earth aligning, as well as the sun being in Leo. That's why it's Lion Gate. And what the Egyptians believed was that Sirius and Orion represented the divine masculine and the divine feminine energy. So what we're seeing is a wholeness of energy, of light, of information being funneled in heavily at this time, which means a lot of us may be getting intuitive hits, downloads, ascension symptoms, but it also means this bright area of sun, these constellations lining up with us, means that that light is going to illuminate all of the shadow. It's going to bring up to the surface, just as Venus in retrograde is, all of the things that are happening in our life, good, bad, or indifferent, all the things in our energy field, all the frequencies that are at play, for us to then assess and say, is this for my highest good? Is this for my highest good? Okay, this isn't. How do I want to handle that? And if you're not aware that all of this is being poured into your energy field right now, it could feel really chaotic. And even knowing it feels really chaotic because there's all these shifts and things that need to be realigned or for you to feel the alignment that you've been creating for so long. So the Lionsgate portal is on 8/8, which is the day 8 is the abundance, is infinity, is potentiality. So taking time in whatever way feels right for you to just check in with yourself. Maybe that's the first day you try to connect with your guide group. That portal, the veil is so thin, if not even like gone during that day, for you to call in directly what it is you're trying to manifest for your highest good, for you to feel the abundance and to get that download of light information, reminding yourself that you will need time to integrate it, to let your nervous system process all of that light that may cause physical reactions before taking your next course of action or making your next choice.
Mm. Mm. When you are in service to yourself and committed to personally evolving and changing, you uplift everyone around you. That is service. Service is not going out and saying, I'm going to save you. Very American,
Mm.
right? Service is doing the work yourself and living in such a way that everyone you touch is affected by your journey. That's a little excerpt from Bringers of the Dawn. I felt very called to share in that moment.
That's beautiful one. Thank you.
So, damn.
I know. And I'm still like, there's still like a couple other things. Like, for example, I believe we have seen many, 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 many people since like, I don't know, the fucking 50s coming out from government official that were part of like government agencies to say, yes, we've been in contact. We have been doing these things. Talk about free energy. If they're already doing things like the UFOs that we see zipping around or whatever, what the fuck do we need oil for? Besides the fact we are awakening And we are part of an initiation on Earth that's happening right now. And with this Lionsgate portal and everything that's been happening since, I really want to say 2012, but a major shift like that pushed more in 2020, we're all becoming a little bit more aware. We're all turning around and saying, well, wait, hold on. This doesn't seem right. There has to be something else. And that is why they give us a little information. Right? That is why they're like, oh, actually, we have been in contact and we have seen their physical bodies and we have used their tools and we've hurt them and they've hurt us and blah, blah, blah. And whatever beings they're talking about, because there's so many, and I have my personal opinion on who they're working with, which is not my personal guide group or the Light Council, trying to just keep us in fear. And that's why the government is always doing whatever the fuck they're doing because they're dumb. No, I'm kidding. But I think that's why they're cracking it open now, because they feel that if they tell you what they quote unquote know as truth, as science, that it'll appease you enough that you won't want to expand even more. But here is your opportunity to expand even more. If you have the government telling you that they know that there are other bodies out there, then you can very easily start to imagine what else is there. You can start to anchor in the information that Victoria and I are giving you, because it's now common knowledge that there are otherworldly beings that are here on Earth. It's quote unquote common knowledge for a long time, but now you're able to say, all right, well, if we all as an earthling can agree upon this, how much further can we take ourselves?
The government made a deal with these extraterrestrial beings that you're seeing on the news. And the deal was that they were not allowed to make themselves known because, quote unquote, the humans or the Americans were not ready for this information. And so I just want to point out that if the government is releasing this information now, either that deal has expired or the extraterrestrials are like, things are so bad here, we need to intervene, fuck the government, or you're ready to hear this information.
I think it's a little bit of everything.
It is.
I think it's the ones who made a deal. They're maybe it's not expired, but they're like, we need to make some new parameters here
Mhm.
because too much information is flooding down that like we're going to get kicked out. You know, if people really understand like what we're trying to fuel and feed here, they're not going to want us here. And once they realize how powerful they are and their capability of getting us out of here, or not even getting us out of here, but like I said before, not giving us fuel that we need to survive, so we can't even do anything here.
Mhm.
And I also want to note that, like, yes, as kind of like an overarching thing, like these beings have been working with the government, but there are also like council beings like us. We all come in with a job, and some of them are to like at least attempt to infiltrate, right? Maybe they don't get there, but I don't want to discredit that there are people in some capacity of the government or in different areas of our earth reality that are still doing the work from a light perspective, from a trying to give information perspective. um, so it's just really funny to me that it's coming out now, because notice how like even when what was it last year when they like showed the videos, they were like, we're actually here's videos of, and everyone was kind of like, yeah. And I feel like the same, they're like, we actually have the physical bodies, we saw the physical bodies of these aliens, and we're like, okay.
No one,
Like,
yeah, no one gives a shit because these aren't the aliens or otherworldly beings who are going to help us. It's the family of light.
mm-hmm.
It's the Light Council who's here to help us. And I've been working with Pleiadians since I was a teenager. So I'm just saying there is no deal saying I can't talk about this, but I felt very called for most of my life to keep this knowledge brewing and stewing for this time right now. So it is such an honor for me to be able to share what I've been receiving in terms of information for what feels like a very long time. It is so
Mm-hmm.
liberating to finally just and to have Tara to bounce off what we're receiving and reading and it just it feels really really good in my human body.
I agree. And I think, like you said, it's not just that we're like, oh, these aren't. there's a piece of you that remembers. There's a piece that's like, that's not my DNA. That's not okay, yeah, sure. That's just like another person. Like whatever. Like where's my home? Where's my people? And maybe for some of you you are resonating because those are your people and like whatever. That's fine. I'm not saying you're bad or they're bad or whatever, right? It's just a different intention, and the intention that earth was created for was to hold knowledge, share knowledge, and be in unity and peace. That doesn't mean that that's the right answer, although it very clearly feels like the right answer, right? But it's just a answer. So allowing yourself to tap into whatever beings you feel called to in whatever capacity, meditation, reading channeled books. Victoria just shared with me a show called Deep Space on Gaia. We only watched season 4, but it is literally about the different races, and it resonated with me so well that it was like, yep, this is fact. It may not be fact for everyone, but it is for me. Um, and just, yeah. And I guess I also just want to give a lot of gratitude because you being on this journey with us is allowing us to fulfill our purpose of being broadcasters, because that's what we're here for. I've also been connected to the Pleiadians. I didn't realize that's who it was, but been connected to the Pleiadians for a long time. And I just freaking found out, which was super exciting, that every night that I can see the stars, I always look for this one cluster of stars. And literally, Andrew knows it. My friends know, like, that's my cluster of stars. I always show everyone, I'm like, look, that's my cluster of stars. Have you ever seen it before? Like, it's so cute. Look how many stars are in it. Girl, I just found out that I have been pointing to the Seven Sisters, which is the Pleiadian star system, for years. And I didn't realize. And I kept saying, that's mine. That's my star system. And like, or like, that's my star cluster. Like, and I don't know, like now thinking like why I would say that's my star cluster outside of the fact that like it felt that way. So finding your way to connect with these beings, because now, like I feel like every time now is the time, but like now is the freaking time. Like with everything that's happening energetically with the Lionsgate portal, like now is the time to experience. And Victoria, if you wouldn't mind me on one more tangent, I'd like to give a little story of my multidimensional merging that I've been doing over the past month, because I feel like giving this story, although it felt physically and energetically very difficult, you can really see how simple it really is when you just follow your intuition. So at the, I would say middle of June, I went to Spirit Weavers, which is a spiritual gathering. I suggest you check it out. It happens in June once a year. Amazing. Um, and that's where I really started to recognize, even though I've been saying it and feeling it and thinking it, like really able to live my multidimensional being able to just like shift into different realities. And I'm not going to get into all the details and stories, but between recognizing that and recognizing the history of Earth in my DNA, I was called to integrate the reptilian piece of me. And it was a slow understanding for me. I just like kept doing whatever my brain was telling me. And this is going to sound really gross, guys. Please don't judge me. But my bearded dragon was shedding and I got called to save his skin. And I don't know, for reptilian people, they're going to be like, that's dope. For everybody else who has just cats and dogs, they're going to be like, that's gross. So I kept his skin and I dried it out. And I had no idea why I was keeping his skin until Victoria asked me, oh, why are you keeping his skin? And then it was direct knowledge. I was like, oh, I need to use it in ceremony to integrate the survival part of me, that is the reptilian, into love. And she was like, oh, cool. So I did this ceremony. And after I did this ceremony, I couldn't sleep. I had 3 hours of sleep every night. I didn't want to eat. Like looking at my favorite foods, I was like, ugh. Like, so I was eating like one meal a day, not doing my job, right? My guides were like, you still need to take care of yourself, even though there's so much happening energetically. Fell short on that end. I went to Megan and Evan's sound journey. They helped me integrate it, and it felt physically painful because they showed me as the snake into my heart center, and it was like screaming because it's not a frequency it's used to. It was like, it was so like, what is this? I don't know this. It's not normally fueling me, right? Like it's like getting like an injection of something that you're just like, ugh, it's changing my DNA. I don't know what's happening. And the main part of my story that I want to get to is after that journey, I knew I needed to do one more ceremony because for me, that's how I integrate. I'm not saying that everyone should. And something that seemed such common knowledge that I had never done before was I set the circle, I called in the 7 directions, and then I called in my guide group and I said, surround me, step into the circle together. We need to anchor in some love. We need to anchor in for myself, all these downloads that have been coming through. And then all of a sudden, I just got the tick to call the rest in. And at first, I was like, who's the rest? I already called in the guides. Like, who's the rest? And the reptilian part of me stepped forward and I went, oh shit. And I allowed the guide group to become the outside concentric circle. And I called in every version of me that is working right now. And that doesn't mean just on earth. And I said, each of you step into this circle who is aware enough to be able to do that. Obviously, there are probably pieces of me that aren't aware. We all stepped into the circle together, and I said, we need to breathe together. And I brought that oxygen not just to my own body, but each version of me around the circle at the same time, anchored in light and brought oxygen into their body. And what a fucking game changer. And it seems so simple, right? We do it for ourselves all the time. Oh, let me just anchor in and take a breath. Maybe you take the next step up and you're like, let me call in my guides and help them anchor me in. But to call in the other pieces of you, it seems so natural. But at the same time, stepping out of that, I'm like, how have I never thought of that before? And we all were able to up level our frequency because we're all just rays of different colors within the rainbow. So the whole rainbow was able to shift up. That's why all of these downloads have been rapid fire because I am simultaneously experiencing all of them. We are all getting the downloads and sharing it with one another, right? I have, like I said, Bringers of the Dawn, No More Secrets, No More Lies. And I also want to give a shout out to the Herbal Astrology Oracle deck by Adriana Allies. I'm probably saying that incorrectly, but I'll share her link. This, whether it's because it's her deck is just powerful, which I heard from many, or the time that I got it, has allowed me to have direct contact. I ask a question, the next card is clear as fucking day. It's not, oh, let me tap into my intuition. It's just, there it is. So when you do this kind of work, when you integrate the multidimensional being, yes, I then sent ripples through the reptilians to say, love is safe, but I also anchored into such a new frequency for myself. And it is as simple as commanding it. But you need to embody that and command it for yourself. And that's my story.
A beautiful story indeed. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing.
Thank you for holding space. Thank you guys for listening and being open enough to take in all of this information. And I'm sure that even I will have to go back and listen to it a couple times because we channel in things. But I really appreciate you at least opening up and making it here with us because after 2 seasons, whether it was just us or with those who joined us on this journey, it has been transformative for us. And I'm so grateful to hear that it has been transformative for you. So thank you for being on this journey with us.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for showing up, for doing the work, for expressing yourself, for cultivating presence, for listening, which can be a challenging thing for many.
Mm-hmm.
We're so grateful you've made it to this point in our journey, in the Frequency Broad's journey, and that you're part of our community. We are so excited for what's to come in season 3 and can't believe it's episode 10 of season 2. Where has time
Oh my God,
gone?
that's so
It's really
crazy.
crazy.
So go out there and meet your galactic neighbors, meet your guide group, meet whoever the hell you want to because you have the capability of reaching them. You just need to ask and then listen.
I don't wanna say goodbye.
I know, I'm like, "What
I'm like,
else?
"What else
What
are we
else can
talking
we talk
about?"
about?"
But we're going to
I'm
the
like, "There's so much
beach,
to talk about." Yes, we are.
so we're going to go integrate everything that we just downloaded and experienced and said to you, so we're going to be little sun babies and photosynthesize and receive the light information today.
And check out and make sure you're following our Instagram because during this time, when we're in between spaces of season 2 and 3, there'll still be plenty of knowledge we're ready to share with you. And I'm hoping to put out some tips and tricks for integrating and dealing with the Lionsgate portal in just a few weeks. So we love you. Thank you so much for being on this journey with us.
Holding your heart in ours.
Yes, forever. Bye.